What's going on, everybody? I'm Max Ralph.
Seth Engle.
Back today with another 1-0 podcast. Big stuff happened this week for Penn State. We've already talked a little bit about what happened earlier in the week. Lennon Montgomery's commitment was big, a guy that we both really like. But on consecutive days, Thursday and Friday, Penn State picked up two linebackers, the first linebackers in the 2023 class, 4 stars, Tony Rojas and Tamir Robinson. These guys are legit. These are huge pickups and two guys that Penn State has been looking to add for a really long time. I mean, you saw buzz about these two guys for months now, and Robinson has been recruited since he was a freshman in high school. So this is a long time coming to grab these two guys, but after pushes from Virginia Tech for Robinson and Georgia for Rojas, it's a really nice job by the Penn State staff to pick these guys up. But yeah, Seth, how big was this week for Penn State?
Well, it almost feels like Tony Rojas and Tamir Robinson have been committed for months.
Yeah.
They've been that connected to Penn State. But now that it is all said and done and they're both committed, I think it really is a sigh of relief to have at least for Penn State fans to have two of their top recruits for this cycle, put their word in, going to Penn State. Tony Rojas and Tamir Robinson, two guys that, Manny Diaz will add to that linebacker room, take that to the next level. Two very different players. Tony Rojas is more as a true linebacker, probably play on the inside. Tamir Robinson is an outside linebacker at heart, played a little bit of strong safety too in high school. So this guy's really a striker that, they'll have two different roles when they come to Penn State, but they should be, side by side for, a number of years.
Yeah, they've already got their clearly they've been talking about things for a long time. They want to play together. They've been talking about their TNT, Tony and Tamir, Dynamite, whatever. Kind of fun. But these two guys, like you said, they're gonna have different roles a little bit. They're different styles of players. Both of them are super athletic, but Rojas actually plays running back in high school too, and he's pretty legit as a running back. So he's a guy who reminds me of I'm not saying he's Curtis Jacobs, but kind of a similar style where he can move all around the linebacking core and has that athleticism. A lot of buzz about him just being one of the most athletic linebackers in this class. So really good pickup. But now that this week happened, it feels like we've been waiting on this week for a month now because Rojas and Robinson both announced their commitment dates a week after they visited in June. So it feels like we've been waiting on this for a long time. Now it happened. But what's next for Penn State?
Well, it was a great month of July. It took a little while just because, 4th of July last year was crazy. They didn't have anyone this year. Commitments got pushed back, whatever. They got their 3 guys in July. Moving forward, the class is kind of shaping up to, this is what it's going to look like. They could add a couple more guys in the future. Evan Link is a guy who's been tied to Penn State as much as anyone this past couple months.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle. He's someone I think is going to end up in Nittany Lion. Hasn't announced his commitment date yet, but that should come soon, just based on the fact that the cycle is coming to a close. But Evan Link's definitely a guy to keep my eye on. Jaylen Thompson's another guy, defensive lineman from Michigan. He put Penn State in his top 5 last week. He's been tied very, very closely to Michigan State. He took a visit to Penn State in March or April, excuse me. There's been some talk with other recruits on social media tying Thompson to Penn State. So maybe that's something we start to see, move forward this next month.
Yeah, Link's got a crystal ball right now from 27 Sports to go to Penn State. I think the competition for him has been between Penn State and Stanford thus far. Would be a really important ad because as we know, Penn State lost Joshua Miller. It was kind of funny on Tamir Robinson's Instagram live video last night. All the commits were kind of playing up Josh Miller. And at one point he said, hey, if y'all get Tay, I'm coming back. But he was playing. He covered his bases and said, nah, I'm a dog. So he's sticking with Georgia. That's why Evan Link would be a really good pickup. Yeah. There's another offensive lineman out there who just put Penn State in his top 6, Naquel Bertrand. He's an interesting player. He's a 3-star tackle. I think Link's probably higher up Penn State's board, but Bertrand is from Philly. He's playing in Maryland this year at St. Francis. Obviously, those are two areas that Penn State would like to recruit well and has recruited well. So an interesting player to keep on the radar. I think Link's the number one choice for offensive line right now. Thompson, like you said, has been linked to Michigan State, but it sounds like there might be some changes coming there. I don't know. A little bit more buzz around Penn State for him lately. And past them, it's kind of hard to say for sure. Penn State's at, I think, 19 commitments right now. They can only take 24, 25. So it's hard to say. This class, like you said, is rounding out. Kavion Keys, another linebacker, is a name to watch. Will Norman, a defensive tackle. If you get down to it, defensive tackle is one of the positions that Penn State is probably most in need of now with this class. Norman has been kind of off and on about Penn State for a while. He's supposed to take an official visit. He didn't. Sounds like maybe he's changing his mind, gonna look a little more into it. He plays at IMG Academy, but his mom's from the East Coast and really wants him to go to Penn State, apparently. So he's an interesting one. And then aside from Norman, a QB, it's hard to say. There aren't a ton of guys that Penn State's been super linked to, but they lost Marcus Stokes. So there is a hole at QB in this class if they want one. But yeah, like you said, this class is really rounding out, and it's kind of hard to say exactly who's next outside of Lincoln Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Naquel Betron. Someone want to go back on. Has attended Northeast High School in Philadelphia for the past 3 years. That's a school that has, as many connections as any high school in the country to Penn State. You see Ken Talley went there. Dion Barnes, who's a defensive, assistant coach on Penn State. He used to coach there. There are a number of guys who had gone through the Northeast program, end up at Penn State. He moves over to St. Francis, which is also has a great connection to Penn State. Andre Roy, I don't know if you remember him from the 2022 class, ended up decommitting from Maryland. He's from St. Francis. But St. Francis, Maryland, the high school, they have a number of connections to Penn State. It's just interesting going from one place to another that has that same type of connection moving forward.
Yeah, definitely a name that I'd look out for, because it could be one of those situations where Penn State has all of the number one guys on their class, but like you're never going to complain about adding depth at offensive tackle. Betron's a big body too.
Well, that's another thing too, is like adding Evan Link. Penn State already has probably the best offensive line recruiting class right now, just in terms of the fact that they have, Birchmeyer and then Javen Williams. You add Evan Link to that mix, and it's like, this could be one of the best offensive lines in the country in like a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot to be excited about on the offensive line, because, I mean, it's early to start looking at the 24 class, but they've already got Cooper Cousins committed there, who's a big time offensive lineman too. So there's a lot of good things happening there. And I just don't think that if Naquel Betron wants to be a Penn State Nittany Lion, I don't think there's any reason for Penn State to turn him down if they've got the scholarship spot. Right. And I think they do. But yeah, aside from them, like you talk quarterbacks a little bit, there hasn't been a lot of buzz. Once Marcus Stokes decommitted, we talked about it on a pod that, Penn State doesn't really need a quarterback in this class. Most teams will like to bring in a quarterback every cycle, whether they really need one or not. We talked about one name that was kind of interesting. Chris Parson was a Florida State commit, and then like a day after Marcus Stokes decommitted, he decommitted from Florida State. And then I saw Dakari Nelson and a couple of other Penn State commits like hop on his timeline and be like, hey, come home. And so hasn't really been a whole lot there, but that was just kind of sent off some radars. But there's not a lot going on at quarterback right now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that Penn State is not going to bring in a quarterback in 23. Chris Parson, as you mentioned, maybe on their radar a little bit. Probably not going to happen. You have to start thinking towards 2024. I mean, it's okay that Penn State isn't bringing one this cycle. Like you said, teams like to bring in at least one every cycle. Penn State brought in two in 2022. They can get by with it. Moving on to 2024, a name I think people should keep a close eye on is a guy named Michael Van Buren, who, believe it or not, attends St. Francis in Maryland. This guy's a top 100 prospect. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the class. He's a local guy. I think that this is someone who's right at the top of Penn State's board for next year. So, it gets to a point you kind of have to start moving forward, and that's probably what they're going to have to start doing. Likelihood is Penn State not bringing in a quarterback in 23.
Yeah, there's been a handful of guys who Penn State has followed on Twitter. Like you look at, like if you look at Mike Yursic's history, he's exchanged follows with some kids who are committed to other schools. But I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Stokes' decommitment just happened too late in the cycle for anything to come to fruition there. Van Buren, big name in 2024. Of course, Jayden Davis Penn State's been trying to get linked with him, but it's not a super hot relationship right now. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to get a 2023 quarterback, but I do still think this is a top 10 class just because of these linebackers that they brought in this week and the running back, London Montgomery. Like, this was a huge week. And if you add in Evan Link, if you do end up getting Jaylen Thompson, this is a really solid and really deep class.
Sure.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks for watching. Big week, 3-4 stars, Montgomery, Rojas, Robinson. Keep tracking with us for all your Penn State recruiting needs. And when we get to the fall, we'll have more. Follow with us on Twitter at 1-0pod and at PSU Footblog, and then online at collegian.psu.edu. Peace.